Yo YouTube, what's up? Cruiser20 here. This time I'm bringing you some 500 Zoom review type of a video. And this time I'm not alone. I'm joined with a special guest, Simon, aka Sifiasco. You might know him from my videos, or if you play Zoom, or if you play higher stakes on Pokerstars. A really good player. So we have him today on our YouTube channel to discuss some hands. So yeah, what's up, Simon? How are you doing?
Doing well, mate. Thank you very much for having me. Excited to see all of my punts live streamed on YouTube. But yeah, appreciate you having me, mate. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, nice. Maybe a little bit of introduction just for the people who don't know you. What stakes you play, your poker start, etc. Those like basic stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I play mainly 500 and L on stars. If the 500 Zoom pull is going, which I would like it to go more than it does, but you will often see me in there. I've played full time for about 3.5 years. I gave poker a go when I was a lot younger, and it never worked out for me. But after COVID, when I had a real life job and didn't have to work because it was COVID, got back into poker, started playing 10 and L, grinded it up, and yeah, here I am now. I mean, I will shamelessly plug my Instagram. You can follow me at Poker Elmo on Instagram, where I post a lot of stuff on there. I don't post a lot on YouTube or anything at all, but yeah, I guess that covers it, man.
Yeah, you also do coaching as well. Sifiasco is actually, guys, I never had a coach in my life. I was always stubborn, trying to learn stuff on my own. I played million hands on lower limits, trying to learn stuff on my own. But last month I decided for someone to take a look at my game, and I decided to hire Sifiasco. I really liked his approach, his coaching approach. He showed me some of the leaks I had in my game. So he's also the guy who became from a blue liner to a red liner, if I remember what you said, something like that. Yeah, actually.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, actually, the other day I got a message from a guy asking me like for coaching, and then I told him that I was a blue liner all my life, and then he was like, "But I heard you can fix red lines," you know. And then yeah, I assume he's better off with he's better off getting coached from a guy like you then, because from what I saw on your Instagram account, you do have a winning red line, right?
Yeah, it goes up and down, but yeah, I was always a blue line guy. I'm naturally a folder. Like, I've had to work really hard to stop folding and to be more aggressive. It's taken a lot of time, but I don't think there's any. My game got a lot better when I started to, play a bit more aggressively, a bit more call-y, and then I started to win a lot more. So I don't think it's a coincidence. But I didn't realize I was the first person you got coaching from. So that's kind of a that's kind of a nice honor. Okay, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, as I say, to any of you who want to, watch this and you like what I say, and you don't think I'm a complete idiot, then yeah, you can always hit me up for coaching as well. Why not? I'll plug that too.
All right. All right. Let's start with the main thing that
let's do it.
We're here about. It's the hand review. So first we'll start with some of Sifiasco's hands. He shown me. So with his poker tracker here, you can see it on the screen. Yeah, it's all good. All right, so let's do it like this. One hand, you take the lead. We go like street by street. Then the other hand, I take the lead, and then the other guy just adds up something that he thinks it's good, or something that he'll do differently and stuff. All right?
Yeah, perfect. Sounds good. Okay, sounds good. So am I going first here then?
All right, you go first. I want
to go first. Well, no, I mean, if you want to go first, you can go first. It's up to you.
Okay, I'll go. King Jack. All right.
Do it.
So this is a 500 Zoom, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 500 Zoom. This is against a well-known high-stakes reg who decided one day he was going to play 500 Zoom and ruin everyone's life, basically.
Yeah, I know those guys. Okay, so you go for
yeah.
you go for a 3-bet. He opened pretty small. Do you only play 3-bets or some flats as well from the small blind?
Generally, if someone min raises, then I'll play some flats. Anything above a min raise, I won't. And obviously, if there's a recreation in the big blind, then I'll go ahead and have a lot more flats. But 3-bet or fold if it's not a min raise is my kind of default.
He calls. You see a pretty nice flop for you, I'd say. Jack X cutoff versus small blind versus cutoff 3-bet pot. I think you're gonna have a highest frequency c betting on Jack X boards just because of your ace jack off and king jack off advantage. So these are the boards I would always like bet really high frequency. You go for a smaller size. Anything to add there? I would go like 50 at least. How much is this? This is like 40.
Yeah, it's 40. Yeah, it's 40%. You can I have done. I'm doing a lot of work on 3-bet pots at the moment, and I'm experimenting with different sizing schemes. Up until quite recently, I would have just been probably 2/3. So 66, 67, whatever, on this one and polarizing. These jack high ones, I find you can kind of just do whatever you like, but I'm kind of moving towards more small sizing more often. So this basically is going to be like 40% in pretty much my entire range, but I think you can polarize here and have a checking range as well. It's pick your poison, really.
Yeah, I would like to add that it's not going to be a big mistake. Usually, like, the smaller bets outperform if you're against a weaker player, who won't raise you enough, who won't call enough, right? But I assume this is not the case here because you're against the truly strong player.
No, it's definitely not.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's a simplification. It's definitely a simplification, but I think from the work I've been doing, I've been wondering whether I'm playing the checking line well enough. So if you polarize, then you have to have a checking range, whereas that can be very difficult to play. So then maybe you can go small size, which is a bit of a simplification, but then you don't have to play a checking range on the flop, and you can keep things a bit more straightforward, I think.
Right.
Either is fine.
Okay, so you get a queen on the turn. Really good card for you. You're gonna have way more stuff like ace queen off, queen 10, king queen off, and stuff. I'd expect you to bet really high frequency here. Well, I would go for a small size. Let's see what you went with. Yeah, you went with small as well. Question: do you only play small? Do you have two sizes? What's your takes here?
Here I would just have one size. Generally, I tend to try and be very one size. Try to have one size in as many spots as possible, except for the river. There are situations where I will split, but this is not one of them. Again, just to keep things simple and to know what my range looks like, rather than having to split a checking range, a small bet, and a big bet. And yeah, as you say, the queen is one of the best turns in the deck for me, so I think we can go ahead and bet again the kind of 40%, really high frequency, and just ask the question of, your range is very pocket pair heavy. How are you going to be able to defend pocket sevens here?
Yeah.
Or whatever else. I
would expect it to overperform in prac because, as you said, people have to float all these pocket pairs, and some people already might start folding them because they see like two overcards. They're gonna be indifferent with them, and like they don't want to face maybe river tough spots. But when the sizing is so small, they're forced to call them. And if they don't call them, then you just like double barrel range for small, right? That's the exploit versus that.
Yeah. It's a win-win situation. I think, they either overfold, which is fine, or they, defend appropriately. But then obviously we still just, have a strong hand and he has pocket sevens and, you have two outs.
Right.
Yeah, fun river.
All right, this river. So some of your hands improve. You get like ace kings here. You still have those sets and 2 pairs from the flop or turn. So what's his range in this spot? I would think it's those low pocket pairs if he flats them on the turn versus your small size. Then some slow plays maybe. What's the most obvious bluffs that draws, that he can have from the turn? Ace 5, 5, 6. So yeah, those are the most obvious bluffs I can find here, other than those low pocket pairs. So let's see what you went with. I'm always checking here because there's no point in betting. You don't get called by anything. Your hand's too strong to bluff if you're trying to bluff. You went for a check. The guy jams, and you have a decision here. So I'll start with you.
Yes, we do. Yeah, it's an interesting spot because it depends. I think a lot of this. I think the river is an easy check. Like, obviously, as you say, you can't. It's obviously too thin for value. It's too strong to bluff, so you're forced to check. And I'm not. I think I would just again simplify and play shove or check here. I'm not going to try and carve out some kind of super small block bet here.
Right.
I just don't think that's going to be beneficial. So shove or check, and checking our hand, and then it's honestly kind of a question as to how wide he calls the turn for me here. I think knowing he obviously is a very well-known high-stakes reg, I would expect he calls the turn better than the population. And I think this is a kind of spot where he'll bluff all of his bluffs. So it's the question I would basically have with myself here is he going to call the turn wide enough in order to find the right amount of bluffs on the river? Mm-hmm. And how wide is he going to shove for value? Because I think if he has ace queen, which he'll have every time, can he shove that? If he can shove ace queen, then we might be in trouble. If he doesn't, and he's shoving 2-pair plus, then it will be relatively close, because I think he's going to have, potentially those pocket pairs, the 4-5, ace 5, maybe ace 3, maybe ace x of clubs, maybe he turns a 10-9 or king 10 into a bluff, which I think is very feasible. I think there are candidates here, but I do think it depends on if he's just going to fold pocket 5s through, pocket 9s pure on the turn, then it gets a lot closer. So pretty horrible spot, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. It's player dependent, because how often are you gonna see people continuing stuff like ace 5, 5-6 on the turn, right? Just a gut shot. When the card is really good for you, the queen is really good for you, and all those pocket pairs as well. But if the guy is studied enough, if the guy is really good player, I could see him having all those hands on the turn, realizing that queen is so good for you, right? That he has to defend a lot. And yeah, so what are his bluffs here? So those 5-6s, ace 5s, 5-4 if he has that as well, pre-flop. So you mentioned that he can shove ace queen here. I'm debating, could he do that? Because
that's a big question.
Yeah,
I think
because
I think ace queen makes up a lot of his range.
Yeah, because let's say you have overpairs in this spot, and he's also expecting you to check them as well some of the times, right, on the river. Like if you had aces and kings, so sometimes he might, jam into those with ace queen. So, it depends how capped he thinks you are and what you're going to defend as well versus a jam. You might even fold those overpairs and then call stuff like a king queen. Some blockery type of hand. I don't know. But yeah, it's a really tough spot.
Yeah,
really tough spot, and I think it all depends how wide he calls ace 5, 5-6 on the turn.
Yeah, I think that's what it boils down to. I think it's does he shove ace queen for value, and how wide is he going to call the turn? Unfortunately, there's no real way to tell. I know what the population will do, but man, maybe I'm guilty of knowing this guy, plays high stakes and therefore will call better, and kind of leveled myself into, he plays higher, therefore he has all the bluffs. But I'll be honest, I legitimately just spun my RNG on this one for 50-50 and rolled the call because I knew it was close, and I felt like it was just a 0 EV decision and therefore couldn't decide either way. Yeah. Let the gods decide for me, and they decided that I would be flicking this one in, and then got shown the bad news, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I mean, you do have a lot of value here. You have like all the 2-pair sets, straights, with King Jack. Yeah, I would say it's indifferent. Like, what do you block? Jacks. Maybe having spades would be kind of better because then you block some 2 pairs as well, like Jack, Queen Jack, and Jack 10. So I think you're pretty protected here if you're playing your range correctly with all those like straights, 2 pairs, and stuff. But I also like to bluff catch a lot if the guy will. If the guy won't control his frequencies, if he's gonna find all those bluffs, if he's gonna call really wide on the turn, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those spots where he probably does bluff every bluff because it's just kind of this run out. I don't know how he perceives me or what he perceives people to do here, but I think it honestly, if I had kings or aces, I'd probably shut my eyes and go all in and try and get called by ace queen. I don't know if I would check those. I would check king queen. I'd probably check ace queen. I don't know how much I would check something like pocket jacks. I don't know if maybe I would block the check backs. Yeah, maybe I am protected. It's close.
Yeah,
it's a horrible spot.
Jam ace
picked
kings,
a good first one. Yeah.
And then check the sets and stuff.
Yeah, definitely jam ace king. Just definitely so pop that one in.
You called, and he had pocket fours.
Just a set of fours. Very nice hand. Very nice hand from him.
He's also not going to have that pre-flop that often, like deuces and fours. Cutoff versus small blind. They fall most of the time, right?
Yeah.
The ranges.
I would think definitely 2s. 4s is going to be. I mean, I did go relatively small. I think I only went 10 big blinds. I think, or something like that, or maybe just over. So it's close. Right. But I agree. He shouldn't open them every time, should he? But
interesting from him that he didn't raise the turn with your small double barrel. I would always raise 4s in his shoes on the turn, where I can block all your like Jack X, Queen X, and I deny equity if you have ace kings, 10 9s and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point actually. A lot of people won't raise these small bets often enough. As I say, I'm not saying that call is bad or anything like that, but generally this is why the small bets are quite good in a lot of these spots, because you just get very underraised by most people because they just prefer to click call than raise. But rough one to start.
Yeah, definitely. It's a tough one. All right. So we have next hand. Pocket sixes.
Okay.
You open. Big blind 3 bets. You call. I assume this is a pure call, right? Button versus BB. Sixes. I think.
I don't. Well, if it isn't, then I'm not doing that. I am calling every time.
Yeah, I think like 5s start to mix or something like that. But whatever. We call.
Yeah.
Actually, you want to take this one, all right? Because it's the second hand.
Sure. Yeah. No worries. Right. What should we say about this? So, opening sixes and calling very standard. The big blind is our good friend Gazzy B. So, hi Gary, if you're watching. This flop. Interesting spot, because obviously when he three bets the big blind, he should be three betting a very polarized range. He uses a slightly larger size. I think it was like 13 big blinds or just under, or 12 and a half or something like that. So it should be a very polarized range. So then when you get the 5-4-2, it's not exactly an amazing board for the big blind, because he still has a lot of just, offsuit trash, ace 9 off, king 9 off, a lot of just high cards that miss, etc. So I think he needs to play probably a very polarized strategy and probably a lot of checking. So he starts with check, and there's no surprises there. And as for myself, I'm just going to play small bet or check in terms of my stabbing strategy, with the idea of basically attacking all of the random air in his range and the high cards. I think it's very difficult to have a hand like Queen 10, or even something as strong as King Queen and defend properly versus a small bet here. So I think we can go ahead and stab very often. And sixes, I think, is just perfect hand to stab. Gets a lot of protection, has a lot of equity. So just stab this every single time. And yeah, that's my thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah. Sixes, I agree. Sixes is like the perfect hand. In this spot, it's better than sevens, eights, and nines, right? Because it has more equity. It needs more protection. I would always pure stab this hand. And yeah, I also agree that he can't range c-bet here. He should probably play like bigger c-bets or check.
Yeah.
And he does have a lot of those offsuit hands. So I agree with everything you said. Let's see what he does. Went for a check raise. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, so he goes for the check raise, and then unfortunately, this is already a really tough spot. I tend to find that people will be very quick and easy, or people will find it very easy to find the value check raises in this sort of spot. Obviously, the value is going to come from overpairs. Gaz will know that this board is not very good for him. He will know that he needs a lot of check. And he will know that when he has an overpair, he gets to go ahead and check raise it pretty much every single time. So I don't think that's too hard to find. The question I would have is whether he's going to find the check raise bluffs enough, because I would imagine there's going to be a lot of ace-x, obviously. Maybe even like the offsuit broadways with a club. Go ahead and check raise. Maybe some other weird and wonderful stuff in there as well. So there is a question mark as to what his check raising range looks like here and whether it's too strong. And we're in kind of a really weird spot, I think, with 2 sixes, because there's obviously we can't fold. I think the question is whether we just go ahead and shove and just try to run our equity, because we're doing very well, even versus 2 jacks or whatever, we're doing okay. And we get it in versus flush draws and we're doing very well, or whether we go ahead and call and kind of proceed from there. Really, I think it's a tough one. It's a really difficult question. Give me your thoughts, man.
Yeah, so he does have to find all those offsuit stuff, check raises. I think Gazi probably knows that, and he will do it some of the time. For your hands specifically, I think this would be probably the ideal candidate to jam, just because of the same reasons I said on the flop, because you have so much equity. Stuff like this, stuff like 5-6 suited would probably be good, and then some overpairs. Maybe if you have jacks without a club, something like that, or tens with a club, I think those are kind of a thresholds from what I've studied in these spots. But I also agree that it depends a lot on the big blind and will he have enough check raise bluff. So all those club hands, I mean, once he does raise ace-x, like ace queen off with a club or ace king off with a club, he probably has to shove versus your jam, because then he has a lot of equity, and then he also beats. I think in his shoes, he has to stack off something like ace-x queen of clubs or something like ace-x jack of clubs, because then he dominates your ace-x flush draws that you will also jam, right? Versus this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, so in that part, I think your jam is good with hands like these. And then I would probably call.
Yeah.
I would probably call like middling pairs, play turns, and then some overcards as well. If I have if I stab the ace queen off with a club, I would call that, and then play turns.
Yeah.
With these hands, I would probably jam most of the time with sixes, especially like with a club and stuff.
Yeah. The more I look at it, the more I like jam. To be perfectly honest with you, as you say, like once you visualize the ace queen offs or the ace jack offs that he's going to check raise the flop with, I think he is priced in when we jam because he's going to be beating our flush draws that are going to go ahead and jam as well. So, and he has a lot of equity, so he probably has to flick them in. So jam seems really nice, to be fair. Didn't do that. Went with the call. And then the turn came a very interesting 5, and Gaz went ahead and checked. So this is now really interesting as well as to how he's going to play those, that sort of, what's the word? Bucket of hands that we just mentioned, the ace X and the flush draws, for what it's worth. Because the 5 is a weird turn where technically it's better for me, but I don't think it matters too much. I don't have that much 5x in my range, to be honest. I think he'll probably fast play the overpairs on this turn and probably go ahead and shove. So it's interesting when he does go ahead and check. My thoughts on that, this is basically just going to be a lot of overcards at this point. Check raise give ups and things like that. So the question I kind of had here was, do I want to go ahead and do like a really, really small size and just kind of, almost turn my cards over in a way and just say, I know you have ace high, mate. What are you going to do if I bet 20% or something like that? Or do I go for a check back and then, cap my range a little bit and give Gazzy a tough decision with, those check raise bluffs that he had on the flop as to whether he's going to follow through and shove them on the river or not. I think I could go both ways. I mean, what would you do here?
Yeah, I'm really surprised by his check. As you said, I expect all the overpairs, so I expect all the ace X hands to go for a jam now. Like SPR is so small, it's like he's gonna jam all the overpairs. And his main bluffs are gonna have some equity, he's gonna have overcards and a gut shot with ace X hands. Right? So in practice, I would think this is probably always not always, I never want to say always, but probably high frequency those give ups, that hands with a club that go for one and done, right? And versus that range, I would always look to stab small to deny equity versus ace X. Even if we stab small, I think he has to continue ace X if he doesn't jam them because he has direct odds. Right. The thing that would be tough here is what do you do against if you small bet and then he shoves. Like, do you have the odds then? I don't know what's the SPR one. So let's see. He checked.
Yeah. I think that definitely went through my mind. I think it's close either way. I mean, I do like stab, but then if he is sick enough to find the check raise, then I don't know what I would do. And that might be the reason why, ultimately the reason why I went for the check back, because I know in that line I've got quite a clear plan. Whereas, I know I can bet small and I know he's got ace high a lot in his range. But if he check jams it, then do I really just shut my eyes and hope for the best? Would be a pretty gross spot. And a lot of the time I try to play the game in a way that I avoid the really difficult spots as much as I possibly can. If I know I'm going to be potentially in a tough spot, I might take a different line where I think it's going to be easier to play. So went with the check back on this one, but I can definitely see an argument for betting completely.
It's really tough if you face a check raise. Let's say if you had 7s and 8s, maybe I will be willing more to bet those and then fall to a jam. But with this one, you have more equity. You want to realize it more, I guess. But you can also call it probably this one. So I don't know. It's on the fence.
The river could also come a 3, and we could stack his ace high. So that would also be nice. But then again, if he's going to check call a small size with ace high, then it doesn't matter so much. But Yeah, and then we faced the jam. So half the reason, as I say, I checked back was to get into this line because I think, as I say, it depends on Gaz and what his idea of this spot is. But as we mentioned on the turn, I think a lot of his overpairs just fast play. So at this point, like, what do you rep? That's ultimately one of the questions I have, and I felt like he's just got a lot of ace high in his range, and I just thought, and you rep very, very little in terms of value combos. Yeah, as I say, maybe an ace five, maybe a pocket aces. Yeah, not much, and then a lot of just random ace high and all sorts that now might try and go ahead and bluff the river just to fold me off an ace high myself, or yeah, maybe a pocket pair every now and again, or something along those lines. So to be fair, I didn't think this one was too difficult for me on the river here. I just very much shrugged and flicked this one in because I just felt I didn't believe his range would be well enough protected. His checking range would be well enough protected on the turn, and I felt like it would be too easy to just have too many bluffs on the river. So I just shrugged and pressed the call button here.
Yeah.
But yeah, would you be calling?
So the only overpair I can see him having, like, that wants to slow play is probably aces. Even if he has kings, and you have ace queen yourself, if he checks, he's giving you a lot of equity on the turn. Like, you have a gut shot, you have an overcard. Maybe like kings with a club could check and stuff. So it's either like aces. What else is a good check back? Maybe like ace five if he has that, or five if he has that, and then a lot of those offsuit ace x bluffs, and one SPR 30% equity. Yeah, in general, I also overcall in bet check bet lines because most of the times they are kind of like people don't have enough. As you said, people don't slow play enough on the turns, so their range is naturally more bluff heavy by the river, right? And for 30% pot odds, I think I'll flick in a call.
Yeah, gotta do what you gotta do. Gotta lose the money.
Yeah,
as we get shown the nuts.
Yeah. I mean, this makes perfect sense to play how it plays. So
doesn't it just? Yeah.
Aces 4-5, ace 5, and then overcard bluffs on the river. Against that range, I think you have to call. If he's gonna follow through with those overcards, of course, on the river.
Yeah. This is I think maybe he's in a never bluff spot on the river because he's just like, my range is all bluff catchers. Maybe I'm too sticky. Maybe he never bluffs anything. I guess he can go into the comments below and tell us that, as I'm sure he will. But yeah, an expertly played hand by Gazzy here, definitely. I do question whether he's slow playing the overpairs on the turn there. I don't think it's a bad call from me, to be perfectly honest. But yeah. Get at us in the comments below.
Yeah, tell us what you think, Gazzy. Would you slow play
a
lot of overpairs here, like jacks, queens, stuff?
No way. No way.
Yeah. You have ace queen.
All right.
Go for 3-bet always. Yeah, seems good. Calls. Right. So on this board, I know when there's like queen and 2 low cards, you don't want to have you don't want to range c-bet, but these cards are kind of too they're not really that connected. Let's say if it was queen 6-7 or queen 7-8 and stuff, that's when I would probably make have a checking range. But here I think you can go for a range c-bet. If you did go for a range c-bet, let's see, you did go for a small c-bet, especially if the guy won't check raise you enough, as we already saw from the as I already said from the first hand. Then the small bet will always outperform, right? So what's your thoughts here? Who are you against here on the button?
The button is a more aggressive reg from Brazil, as all Brazilians seem to be. Yeah, off the top of my head, that's all I can really think about. Decent, seems like a very decent reg, for all things considered. But he's got my red tag, which is definitely more aggressive. As as I say, he's Brazilian. I think queen high boards in these positions are usually a little bit played differently in theory to reality a lot, because I think a lot of it revolves around obviously the queen, where the caller has a lot of queen X in his range, because he's just going to have ace queen very, very pure, and then obviously a lot of king queen off and things like that. So he hits the queen actually really hard with his calling range. So it's maybe a bit of a simplification to go 40% with your range, but again, as we said, it's never a bad simplification to make. But again, if you want to go ahead and use a polarized sizing here and have a checking range, I think that's going to be really a very viable strategy as well. Maybe might be a better thing to do versus someone who's more aggressive, to check more to them so they can stab more, and then hit them with the check raise very often is a good thing to do. But just decided, again, keep it simple on this one. Go B40. I have top pair, top kicker too, which helps. So yeah,
backdoor flush draw as well. I think this one will be probably pure, but even if you do have a checking range.
Yeah, exactly. If there was to be a checking range here, I think this one would just be purer than pure. You don't tend to slow play these top pair, top kicker ones in this kind of situation.
Right, so
I've forgotten what I did here.
This turn, some of his stuff improves, like 5-6, 7-8, pocket eights. With your exact hand, I still think this is probably always double barrel, if I had to assume. Yeah, you went for it. I see a bunch of people always check, not always, but they check a lot with these hands with a redraw, because they want to bluff catch with them. But I think when you have so much equity, you always want to bet instead checking, right?
Yeah, I think it's a big mistake. A lot of people see this turn. They recognize that it's bad, and ultimately it is. It's not the best turn in the deck for us, but it's not a range check. And if you're going to go ahead and build a betting range, then this is exactly the kind of hand that you're going to build the betting range around. Like, you go ahead and slow play pocket eights, go ahead and slow play pocket queens. But this just wants to put the money in. As I say, our opponent has a very queen X heavy range, which he'll probably slow down with a little bit. And it's not that bad a turn. Do you know what I mean? It's still there's still an awful lot of value to be had. So I think I feel like the pool on these turns definitely over protect, which is rare that will happen, but that's the vibe I get, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Here you go for a bet. Nice.
Icy river.
Yeah, so you're gonna have some king X, that the double barrel clubs. When he calls twice, I mean, flushes probably in his favor, even though you're also going to be double barreling some flushes yourself. But you're going to have more of like aces, kings, ace queen, while his turn range is going to have more of the like clubs that continue the turn, right? He's going to be folding his other over pairs. He's going to call you with queen, 4x. So he's gonna still have those trades 5-6. But the thing here for me is that you do block a queen, which is going to be some of his calls, like a lot of his turn calls. So I think I would maybe look to slow play this one and go for a check call. All right, so you went for a block.
We did a little 10%. So this is, I agree with what you said, a lot of what you said. So a couple of things I would add is when he calls flop and calls turn, I think he's got a lot of pocket fives, pocket sixes, obviously 5 6 is a straight, of course, but 4 5, 7 6, 8 9 is going to be in there every now and again. There's a lot of like these like middling strength hands. Obviously, he's going to have jacks, tens, nines as well with a club very often as well. So he has like a lot of middle strength hands that are still very much in his range. He has a lot of queen X as well, and the king is one of those rivers where obviously it's the king is good for me. Clubs may be questionable, but king is very very good for me. Um, basically what I was thinking here is in terms of okay, so I can obviously shove, right, which is what I think what most people would do in this kind of spot. It's just like I have the nuts, I'm all in. But I felt that shove would give him too much of an easy decision with just a random queen. I think most people would just go ahead and fold a queen in this kind of spot. And obviously everything I've just spoken about. So then it would be like, okay, can we carve out a block size or can we check? And the thing was, the reason I went with this instead of check is that I think if I check here, he may not go ahead and bluff all of the 7 6 or pocket fives or something like that. But I felt like if I was to bet 10% and kind of go, I've got ace king here, I want thin value, he might decide to turn a hand like sixes with a club into a bluff, and then we win a stack from that where we maybe wouldn't have done in different lines. That was kind of the logic.
Yeah. Yeah, nice logic. And also, as I said, you're going to have those kings, you're going to have those ace king, aces that can't really jam anymore. I mean, maybe aces can with a club, but most of them can't really jam because his best calls, not best calls, but out of his range is going to be that queen, right? Queen jack, queen 10.
Yeah.
That will pull, even in practice, everyone will probably fold every time if you jam this on a king, right? So you still want to get that thin value. You want to make his hands indifferent, all those 7x and stuff. I assume they're going to be indifferent versus your 10% as well. And then people would, I don't know, probably like spaz out or call you just to see what you have versus this small size, even if they have those hands, right? So I think this hand, I also love using 10% in practice. I think it's really good. It outperforms in both areas, right? You get called a lot and you get spaz bluffed a lot,
Yeah, it's a good size to use, I think, in a lot of spots. And I think it's just kind of, as you say, like, I think in reality this puts him into a tougher spot than shoving does. I think shoving is quite easy in reality for him to just okay, well, I'm just going to fold. Whereas this, you're forced to defend, a 7 6 or queen 10 or whatever. You're forced to have a shoving range and all this sort of stuff. And I think it's really tough to play. And yeah, I do want to bet ace king, right? I do want to go ahead and bet the river of ace king if I get hit with it, which I think I probably would with like a club. So it's a nice one to protect, definitely. But I'm very proud of this one. Plus I win the hand, so that one's also good.
Yeah, real nice sizing on the river. So let's see what he had. If I had to guess, probably those low pocket pairs that you said.
No, we just cooled it. We cooled him to death, but it doesn't matter what we did. We would have won all the money.
That sucks. I was expecting like fives.
I thought it was a nice spot. Yeah, I would have looked like a genius if I'd have got him to do it with fives. But no, just the second nuts, or the third nuts or whatever.
All right.
Yeah. But I thought it was a cool hand.
Yeah.
Had to post a winning one.
Yeah. A cool. It's really a cool river decision.
Yeah.
But 10% outperforms definitely.
Yeah, get 10% in those rivers.
All right, guys, that was it for the first part. We recorded for 2 hours or something like that, so I couldn't include everything in the one video. So I made 2 parts, and the second part will be really interesting because those hands will be the hands me and Simon played against each other. Some hands I stacked him, some hands he stacked me. So it will be really interesting to hear each other's thoughts because there's no more guessing games now. We know that we're playing against each other, and we know like our thought processes. So we don't need to guess the villain's range anymore. So it's really, it's a really cool idea to show those are our thought processes match the other guy's like in-game thought process and what do we think about the spot and so on. So yeah, don't miss second part of this video and see ya there.